You didn't stumble into this moment by accident. Something ancient inside you brought you here. Not the part that casually scrolls or searches for distraction, but the deeper part, the one that recognizes when something invisible is shifting. That quiet, timeless presence inside you knew, long before your mind caught up, that something was changing. And maybe lately you've felt it. The world around you bending in unfamiliar ways. The ground underneath your life growing unsteady. Patterns breaking down. Things you used to trust no longer making sense. But what if this isn't a collapse? What if it's a beginning? The soul rarely speaks in words. It stirs instead with symbols, dreams, strange coincidences, and sudden emotions that come without explanation. These are not just random moments. They are messages from the hidden parts of you. And when you don't listen, life begins to shake loose the things that are no longer meant to carry you. Most people see this like unraveling as failure or misfortune. They try to patch up the cracks. They run and they numb. They call it bad luck. But if you've paused long enough to feel this, if something in you stayed open, stayed curious, it means you're hearing the call. Even if you haven't put it all into words, something inside you knows that this discomfort is not an end, but a threshold. You're not falling apart. You're being reshaped, and that's why nothing feels the same. You're beginning to see through the mask of your old life. The roles you used to play don't fit like they used to. The plans that once felt right now feel hollow. You question everything, not from rebellion, but because you can't lie to yourself anymore. You can't pretend that comfort equals truth. This questioning is sacred. It means your soul has begun its descent inward. The seed doesn't bloom by clinging to the surface. It breaks underground long before the first green stem pierces the soil. And that cracking open is not a crisis. It's an initiation. The mind may resist, the heart may grieve, but deep down, it's time. It's time to leave behind the borrowed beliefs, the scripted dreams, the identities built to please. To survive is to belong. All of them are fading now, not in punishment, but in preparation. You are being readied for something real. You may feel out of place in your own life. Conversations that once lit you up now leave you drained. The routines, the goals, even the people. None of it touches you the way it used to. There's no anger in it, just a quiet realization. You've outgrown your old skin. It's not betrayal, it's growth. And while others might not understand this disconnection, your soul does. It knows this detachment is necessary. It's clearing the space for something more aligned, more alive. This isn't about becoming someone new, it's about becoming someone true. The old world may still be moving around you, full of noise and urgency, but you begin to crave something else. Silence, stillness, simplicity. You withdraw, not out of fear, but because you're listening. You're listening to the voice inside that says, you're not lost. You're not broken. You are becoming. What you thought was your breaking point is actually the place where the real journey begins. And then something subtle begins to shift. The synchronicities come faster. A sentence in a book seems written just for you. A stranger speaks a truth your heart had been aching to hear. A dream lingers all day, heavy with meaning. These are not coincidences. These are confirmations. Your inner and outer worlds are starting to echo each other. This is how the soul speaks when it's ready to rise. The more you let go, the clearer it becomes. You realize that what you once chased, titles, praise, certainty, no longer defines you. The identity you worked so hard to build was never the point. The image you maintained, the story you told others, even the dreams you once held so tightly, they begin to fade like mist in morning sun. And in their place, a deeper hunger emerges, not for success, but for truth, not for applause, but for peace, not for more, but for meaning. It may be terrifying to not know what comes next, but it's also beautiful, because now you're not following someone else's map. You're listening to your own compass, and it's leading you somewhere far more real. So if you feel lost, uncertain, undone, good. It means you're no longer asleep. It means the awakening has already begun. You might not notice the shift at first. It comes quietly, like a whisper cutting through the usual noise. The ambitions that once lit a fire in you start to feel distant. The voices you once tried so hard to please now fade into the background. This isn't a loss. It's a clearing. A space where clarity begins to emerge, almost unnoticed until it's undeniable. You look at your life and realize something's different. Not louder, not brighter, but deeper. A kind of vision that doesn't rely on your eyes. A sense that the pursuit has changed. that your value isn't wrapped in outcomes anymore, that admiration no longer feels like proof of anything important. And then you start to ask the real questions, the ones that don't need an audience. What actually feeds your spirit? What stirs that rare feeling of aliveness inside you? You don't ask out of boredom or curiosity. You ask because something inside has grown restless. The old way of measuring meaning, by possessions, achievements, status, it just doesn't land the same anymore. There's a new hunger, a craving for depth, for honesty, for connection that cuts past the surface. At first it's unsettling. You feel like you're drifting, unmoored from the old maps that once gave you direction. But this isn't aimlessness. It's the soul letting go of a compass that no longer points to your truth. And slowly, gently, you begin to rediscover parts of yourself that were buried under years of survival. Forgotten passions, dreams left behind, pieces of your identity you once thought were impractical or naive, they begin to stir again. You're being pulled, not pushed, into a more authentic life. Relationships change too. Conversations that once felt rich now feel empty. Some people fade, not because of anger or blame, but because they no longer resonate with who you're becoming. There's a loneliness that creeps in, not the kind born from isolation, but from transition, from standing on the edge of something new while still letting go of the old. But even in that loneliness, there's a sacredness, an open space where new connections begin to form quietly, like they've been waiting for you to make room. This isn't falling apart. It's waking up. You're not losing your way. You're finding a path that actually belongs to you. The world will still try to pull you back, try to remind you of who you were, try to tempt you with comfort over truth. But the spell is broken. You've touched something real. And once you've tasted that, nothing shallow can satisfy you again. There's a moment when you begin to trust the feeling more than the fact. It's not loud. It doesn't argue. It just shows up as a quiet knowing. You start to notice that your decisions aren't driven by overthinking anymore. They come from somewhere deeper, an instinct, a pull in your chest, a calm certainty that doesn't need to be explained. You feel something shift, like you've stumbled upon an ancient guidance system that was always there, just waiting for you to get quiet enough to hear it. You walk into a room and know exactly what's happening beneath the surface. You meet someone and feel the truth before the words are even exchanged. That's not imagination. It's intuition. And it's been with you all along, watching patiently as your mind raced for control. But now, in the stillness beneath the chaos, it rises, not as a command, but as resonance. A soft tug in a certain direction, a warmth that tells you when you're on the right path. There's no formula for this, no checklist, just a growing trust in that inner thread. It may not make sense to anyone else, but you know. And that knowing becomes your compass. The more you listen, the more clearly life begins to reflect your inner alignment. The noise dies down. The confusion fades. Patterns that used to trip you up begin to make sense. You're not negotiating with doubt anymore. You're moving with clarity. Not because the road is smooth, but because the voice within you is steady. That voice doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It invites. It's ancient, wise, and uniquely yours. And as you begin to follow it, you realize something profound. The path ahead isn't just a direction. It's a mirror. Every step reveals more of who you are. Not who the world told you to be, not who you thought you needed to be, but the one you were always becoming. Then one day you feel it, that quiet fire. It's not dramatic. It's not about achievement or proving anything. It's the sacred unrest that says, I cannot stay the same. You begin to seek transformation not out of dissatisfaction, but because something in you refuses to remain asleep. The things that once entertained you now feel empty. The conversations that once sufficed now leave you searching for something more. Not more noise, more depth. You crave growth, not as a goal, but as a return. Remembering of something essential. You want to strip away the layers, the conditioning, the roles you were taught to play. Not to become someone new, but to finally live as who you've always been. The questions change. They're no longer about success or image. They're about purpose, about calling, about the unlived parts of your soul that are still waiting. What am I meant to become? What part of me have I silenced out of fear? These questions don't come to shame you. They come to free you, to call you beyond the familiar, beyond the comfort zone, into the unknown terrain of your own becoming. You begin to understand that growth isn't adding, it's shedding, it's unlearning, it's releasing what no longer belongs. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels like your life is unraveling, but it's not. It's being rebuilt on truth. And in that truth, you realize your greatest chapter has not yet passed. It is rising quietly from within, not waiting for applause, but waiting for you to say yes. You feel it before you can explain it, like a quiet unraveling beneath the surface, a soft collapse that doesn't scream but whispers. The life you've been carrying starts to feel too small, like wearing someone else's clothes. You aren't falling apart, you're shedding. And though everything in you once feared this unraveling, now it feels sacred. Not destruction, but clearing. Not the end, but the beginning of a deeper alignment. Something in your soul is waking, and it no longer wants comfort dressed as truth. It wants real. It wants raw. It wants you. Suddenly you're drawn to different conversations, different people. Depth becomes your compass. Shallow smiles and rehearsed connections can't hold your attention anymore. You're no longer afraid of being alone. What scares you now is losing yourself in places where your soul can't breathe. So you step away from noise, from patterns that kept you circling, from relationships that once fit like armor but now weigh like chains. You don't do it with rage. You do it with reverence. You do it because something ancient in you has stirred and refuses to be silenced again. The masks you wore so well begin to slip. And though part of you wants to grab them, keep them intact, pretend, another part knows there is something stronger beneath them. Your truth, not polished or perfect, but unshakable. You begin to stand alone, not because you're isolated, but because you're becoming indivisible, whole. You see through the illusion of connection that costs your peace. You feel the residue of conversations that drain you, the subtle ache of being misunderstood in places you no longer belong. And when those ties begin to loosen, when you step back from the noise, you realize something. This isn't you giving up. This is you coming home. You used to call it loyalty, staying in what was familiar. Now you see it for what it was, fear of being unheld. But you are learning to hold yourself, to honor your energy like sacred ground, to stop explaining your light to those committed to their shadows. There is a quiet conviction rising inside you now. You no longer shrink. You no longer apologize for being more than you once allowed yourself to be. You start to see the difference between intensity and intimacy, between chaos and connection, between someone needing you and someone seeing you. And in that clarity, you begin to walk differently, speak differently, choose differently, not from bitterness, from clarity, the kind of clarity that comes when you remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You're not pushing people away. You're making space for those who speak your inner language, the ones who don't need to be impressed to love you, who meet you with presence and not pretense. The grief comes too, and the ache of letting go of what you thought would stay. But this grief is sacred. It's the soul's way of honoring what once served but no longer does. It's the echo of growth, the necessary ache of becoming. You don't numb it. You don't rush it. You hold it because you understand now. Transformation is not always loud. Sometimes it's a soft, silent undoing. And in that undoing, something new finds room to breathe. People fade, patterns dissolve, dreams shift. It might feel like loss, but it's really a release. You're not disconnecting out of indifference. You're dissolving attachments that kept you out of alignment. Your energy is being reclaimed. And with it, your clarity returns. You see through the roles you once performed. You listen to your own silence. You understand now, freedom is not about having everything. It's about no longer needing what steals your peace. Your outer life may still look the same, but inside everything's rearranging. The urgency, the anxiety, the pretending, all of it begins to slip away. And in its place, a groundedness you've never known before. You're not chasing now. You're aligning. You're not seeking a validation. You're honoring your inner resonance. It's not about more. It's about real. And what's real doesn't need to shout. It simply is. You don't need to explain this transformation to anyone. Those who are meant to walk with you will recognize it, not in your words, but in your presence, in the stillness of your being, in the depth of your gaze. You are not what you've left behind. You are what you're walking toward. You are not who you were in survival. You are who you're becoming in surrender. And that becoming is not a striving. It's a remembering of your worth, your voice, your wholeness. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about reclaiming yourself. Every part, even the ones you once buried in shame, especially those, because now you know. They are not broken. They are brilliant. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be honest with yourself, with your journey, with your truth. And in that honesty, you begin to build a life that fits, not the old you, but the one who is finally allowed to exist without compromise. So if everything feels like it's shifting, it's because it is. If you're feeling detached, distant, disoriented, it's because you're moving through the sacred threshold of transformation. This is not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough, not the end, the beginning, a quiet revolution of the soul. And on the other side of this unraveling is not someone new, but someone true. Keep walking, keep listening, keep honoring what rises. You're not alone in this. Many are waking with you, and though this path may be solitary, it is never isolated. You are part of something larger, a collective remembering, a return to what is real, what is essential, what is deeply, undeniably you,